Welcome to G Fun Facts Online. Today, we're taking a deep breath and diving into the price of that fresh air in our cities. The constant hum of traffic, the lifeblood of our urban centers, comes with a toxic cost. In response, cities worldwide are drawing lines on the map called emission zones, restricting the most polluting vehicles. This isn't just an environmental policy, it's a massive economic experiment with huge consequences for our health, our wallets, and the very future of how we live. So, what is the true cost of cleaner air? Let's follow the data. The idea of emission zones isn't brand new. Sweden pioneered them in the 90s, but their recent explosion across the globe is fueled by stark scientific reality. The World Health Organization estimates that 9 out of 10 people breathe polluted air, leading to a staggering 7 million premature deaths every year. This has turned air quality from a simple environmental issue into a full-blown public health emergency. Emission zones, whether they're called low-emission zones, ultra-low emission zones, or clean air zones, all aim to do one thing: get the dirtiest vehicles off the streets. Their primary targets are often older diesel vehicles, which are major sources of nitrogen oxides, or NOx, and particulate matter, known as PM. These pollutants are directly linked to devastating health problems, asthma, heart disease, and even cancer. Children are particularly vulnerable, with toxic air capable of stunting lung growth and causing lifelong issues. These zones typically work in one of two ways. Some are non-charging, focusing on promoting cleaner transport like better bike lanes and public transit. But the ones that make headlines are the charging zones. Here, if your vehicle doesn't meet a certain emission standard, you have to pay a daily fee to enter the area. This is enforced by a network of automatic number plate recognition cameras, a system that has sparked fierce debate about the economic impact on businesses and low-income families. But advocates insist the long-term benefits are worth the upfront costs. Let's break down that economic equation. On one side, you have the direct costs. For individuals and businesses with non-compliant vehicles, this can mean a daily charge that adds up to thousands over a year, or the significant cost of buying a newer, cleaner vehicle. Small businesses, like delivery services or tradespeople who rely on their vans, can be hit especially hard. When London expanded its ultra-low emission zone, or ULEZ, it was estimated that nearly 700,000 drivers in the Greater London area would be affected. To soften this blow, cities often introduce support systems. London, for instance, created a scrappage scheme offering grants to help eligible residents and small businesses make the switch. In a helpful move, the UK's tax authority even confirmed that these ULEZ charges can be claimed as a tax-deductible business expense as long as the trip was exclusively for work. And then there are the costs to the city itself. Setting up the enforcement infrastructure isn't cheap. The initial investment for Stockholm's congestion charging system back in 2006 was around 200 million euros. It's also important to note that these zones aren't a one-size-fits-all solution. A 2020 study looking at a proposed zone in Stockholm suggested that the social costs, including the financial hit to drivers, could potentially outweigh the health benefits. Why? The study argued that the vehicles to be banned were only responsible for a small fraction of the city's pollution, and that Stockholm's air quality was already improving naturally as people bought newer cars. This highlights a crucial point. The cost-benefit analysis changes dramatically from one city to the next. Now let's flip the coin to the benefits side, because this is where the story gets really compelling. The return on investment in clean air is massive, primarily through improved public health. A landmark study from the University of Bath, which analyzed over a decade of data from London's emission zones, provides some incredible figures. The introduction of the first low-emission zone, or LEZ, in 2008 led to a 13% reduction in harmful particulate matter in Greater London. The stricter ultra-low emission zone, introduced in 2019, had an even bigger impact, slashing nitrogen dioxide levels in central London by over 18%. These are not just abstract numbers, they translate into real health improvements for millions of people. The same study found the LEZ was responsible for an 8% decrease in respiratory problems like asthma and a 4.5% reduction in long-term health issues. It led to fewer hospital admissions for respiratory conditions, preventing 12 admissions for every 10,000 people in the city. The ULEZ went even further, improving general health by 3% and reducing anxiety by 6%. The economic savings from this are mind-boggling. The University of Bath researchers calculated that London's emission zones have generated cost savings of over £963 million, driven by people taking fewer sick days and needing less medical care. Another analysis estimated annual public health savings of more than £37 million from the LEZ alone. As Professor Eleonora Fitzgerald from the University of Bath put it, clean air makes for healthier, happier, more productive communities. The long-term projections are even more dramatic. The Mayor of London's office forecasts that by 2050, the city's air quality policies will have prevented almost 300,000 new cases of air quality-related diseases and over 1 million hospital admissions. So how do cities achieve these results without just taking a wild guess? The answer is data. Modern emission zones are sophisticated, data-driven strategies. It starts with building a comprehensive air quality monitoring network, deploying sensors across the city to get real-time data on pollutants. This data identifies the worst pollution hotspots and helps planners define the zone's boundaries and set the right emission standards. From there, cities use advanced modeling to predict the impact of different scenarios. Researchers in Lyon, France, for example, used models to test whether it was better to tighten emission standards or expand the size of the zone. Their data showed that a larger perimeter was more effective, both environmentally and economically. In Madrid, officials used machine learning algorithms to forecast what pollution levels would have been without the emission zone. By comparing this forecast to the actual, measured data, they could accurately isolate the policy's effect, proving it led to significant reductions in nitrogen dioxide. And the data's job doesn't end at launch. Continuous monitoring is key to evaluating success and making adjustments. London regularly publishes detailed reports on the ULEZ's impact, showing that the number of the most polluting vehicles has fallen by nearly half, with over 95% of vehicles now compliant. This data-rich approach allows for a quasi-experimental evaluation, comparing the city with the zone to similar cities without one, providing robust evidence of what works. To see how this all plays out in the real world, let's look at 3 pioneering cities. First, London. The city has been a global leader, implementing a phased approach that started with the LEZ in 2008 for heavy vehicles and evolved into the world's first 24/7 ultra-low emission zone in 2019, which was later expanded to cover all of Greater London. The data, as we've seen, proves its success, but it hasn't been a smooth ride. The most recent expansion was met with fierce opposition from some residents and businesses worried about the cost. This highlights the absolute necessity of public consultation and financial support to get these major projects over the line. Next, Stockholm. The city's congestion charge is a classic case study in winning over a skeptical public. The system was introduced as a 7-month trial in 2006. The primary goal was to reduce traffic, not just pollution. During the trial, traffic dropped by about 20%, and congestion was cut by up to 50%. Emissions in the inner city fell by 10 to 14%. The improvements were so obvious that public opinion completely flipped. In a referendum held after the trial, a majority of citizens voted to make the system permanent. The key takeaway from Stockholm? A trial period can be incredibly powerful, allowing people to experience the benefits firsthand before committing. Finally, Milan. This Italian city uses a clever dual-zone strategy. In the historic city center, they have Area C, a standard congestion charge zone. But surrounding that is the much larger Area B, a massive low-emission zone covering about 72% of the city. Area B is free to enter, but it completely bans the most polluting vehicles. The results are impressive. Area B has driven a rapid shift in the city's vehicle fleet. Between 2022 and 2024, the number of hybrid cars entering the zone nearly doubled, while the share of older diesel vehicles fell from 40% to 30%. It's estimated that in just 1 year, Area B prevented 150 tons of NOx emissions. Milan's success, which came after a referendum showed 79% public support, demonstrates how you can combine different types of zones to tackle both congestion and pollution effectively. This brings us to the human dimension of emission zones. Social equity. While the environmental and economic cases are strong, a policy's success hinges on public acceptance. A major criticism is that these zones can unfairly penalize low-income families, who are more likely to own older, non-compliant vehicles and least able to afford a new one. This is a critical challenge. To create a just transition to clean air, cities must provide robust financial support, like scrappage grants and subsidies for public transport. Clear communication is also vital. When people understand the direct health benefits for their families and communities, they are far more likely to support the measures. A study on Barcelona's LEZ found that most residents had a positive attitude, precisely because they perceived it as a fair and effective way to fight air pollution. So what's the road ahead? The evidence is clear. When designed well and implemented fairly, emission zones are a powerful tool. The data from London, Stockholm, and Milan proves they can deliver profound environmental, health, and economic benefits. The future will likely see these zones become even smarter. Imagine dynamic systems that use AI and real-time data to adjust restrictions based on current traffic and pollution levels. But the ultimate goal is to create cities where clean air is a given, not a policy objective. This requires a holistic approach that goes beyond just restricting cars. It means massive investment in world-class public transport, creating safe and beautiful infrastructure for walking and cycling, and accelerating the switch to zero-emission vehicles. The economics of emission zones isn't just a balance sheet of costs and benefits. It is an investment in the long-term health and prosperity of our cities and the people who live in them. The price of fresh air might seem high, but as the data shows, the cost of doing nothing is infinitely greater. Thank you for listening to G Fun Facts Online.